What's up, everybody? This is the first episode, which might actually get deleted depending on how this audio sounds, of the car ride sessions. I put out onto the gram, just curious what people would want to hear about me ramble on. And what's interesting is I kind of had, a handful of topics that I'd already wanted to talk about, and it seemed like they were in alignment, which is kind of cool. So, there's several, it's like, what do I want to talk about first? And there's one question in particular that I was like, yeah, we're gonna talk about that, and it was essentially how to make a small rig feel big. How do you make, because not everybody can have an EDM rig or an arena rig with 150 fixtures and everything like that. You might only have 8 lights or 12 lights, and depending on the size of your stage will kind of determine that. Because it's tough. I was thinking about this on my way, somewhere yesterday, and I was like, yeah, if you only got 4 lights, but your stage is like 60 feet wide, there's really not much you can do. So there is a little bit of a threshold, or maybe a tipping point of, if there's a desire to create this, look visually, then there does need to be proper resources allocated to accomplish that. But I will also say, if you're in a 500 seat auditorium, you don't need 40 moving lights and all the strobes and everything going on. You might only need 10 or 12 key fixtures to create. Now, understand too, to create an environment, but understand too, I'm not really taking front light and hair light and all of that into account. I'm really taking in just the stage, what's on the stage, not, oh, well, if you only have 8 lights, then you need so many for key light. And I'm assuming that is already being taken care of. This is me kind of saying, oh, we've got 8 lights to do something fun and create a mood, a moment, an environment, complement and support what's happening on the stage. So, yeah, there's a couple of practical aspects to it of, if you've already have the fixtures that you need, if you already own the fixtures, you kind of have what you have, and you've got to be able to work with that. But if you're in the market and you're like, well, I've got a lower budget, what do I need to look for? I'm very much in the camp of budget fixtures. They don't need to move. Most of the time, budget fixtures, I know I'm getting way off topic on this, but budget moving fixtures, typically you're taking on a lot of other sacrifices, whereas if you find a really great static light that is homogeneous on the color, which means you don't really see the skittles, and also has some form of motorized zoom, can really help out. It can really give you some tools that just a normal static light won't give you. But let's just dive into it. I'm kind of taking our normal non-permanent rig into account, which is, it's a combination of moving washes and static washes that also they both have zoom functionality. But you might also be in a room, so right off the bat, whatever it is, whatever situation you're in, of oh, my rig just feels really small, see if you can add haze. Adding particulate to the air automatically makes everything look that much better. But I understand that that's not always stylistically appropriate, it may not even be feasible in the space you're in because of fire restrictions or things like that. So it might not be possible, but see if it is, because that can automatically just create all kinds of different looks, opportunities for different, ways for light to move about. You're lighting the air, so it just automatically creates a bigger look. But if you don't have that, you're like, I've got a handful of LED wash lights. All right, let's use what you got. You have intensity. So let's break down the attributes. You have intensity, so brightness, brighter, darker, and you have color. So you have saturated color, you have desaturated color. So you have dimmer, but you also have, if you go like red or blue, you have a very saturated red or blue, which is contributing to your brightness. It's also contributing to the mood, the atmosphere in the room. And as you desaturate that particular color, you're also adding brightness. But most every static LED fixture out there is additive color mixing. So by desaturating the color, you're also adding brightness. So something to keep in mind when you're trying to make a small rig feel big is that as the programmer, you are in charge of that tone. So if you're starting your fixtures out at 100% in a saturated color and just static, no chases or anything like that, in your mind, you're like, well, it's just a static color and that's it. Well, you're already at full for your intensity. So the only way you can add brightness is by desaturating your color, right? So find where you can cut your intensity down. And if you can get that down to 25, 35, 40%, that buys you headroom in your just overall brightness, whether it be a saturated color or a desaturated color. When you go, when you desaturate and you're also adding the intensity, you're getting that much more headroom and that much more intensity and brightness, and therefore dynamics, because it's really all about managing dynamics. You don't need, all of these lights, 40, 50, 60 fixtures to manage dynamics. I will say having that many fixtures makes it much easier to manage dynamics, makes it much easier to create big looks and everything like that. But you don't have that. If you've only got 8 fixtures or 10 fixtures or just a handful of lights, you got to use what you have. And managing the dynamics where you start. So I have this, I call it the 5 to 10 paradigm, just because that's what came out of my brain. And it's this idea of like, and before I get into that, like, if you're in this space of how do I make a small rig feel big, you're already thinking of, like, you're already kind of in the arena of programmed lighting. It's likely not set it and forget, or it's moving away from a set it and forget it. So that's where I'm kind of going towards, this 5 to 10 paradigm of managing and actually doing programmed cues, programmed sequences. Because you're trying to figure out, like, how do I hit those big moments? How do I support the song at these big moments when I only have a handful of fixtures? So again, this 5 to 10 paradigm, you set the tone of it. So finding and figuring out where my lowest look is, and then find where your highest look is, and honestly, have a few of them. Have a few that are like, this is my big bright look. This is, if you've got, if you're able to, depending on your controller, if you're able to do chase effects, or if you're able to do hits, that kind of stuff, have a couple of those looks that are your big looks that you can kind of cycle through. But that is also determined, or rather that feeling like redundant over and over again each song, is really determined by how low you can go, or how low you start rather. So again, it's really about, managing those. It's like, try to start as low as you possibly can, and there's a lot of value to letting the song breathe as well, and letting the song just kind of be the song and exist in a space, and you're just kind of setting the framework that is just allowing that song to just live in. The longer you can stay there, that's going to increase the impact of your big looks. So that's kind of the 5 to 10 paradigm of like, I want to start off at like a 1 to 2 look, or maybe even a 2 to 3 look on the, dynamic scale. And then even if I can get away with on the chorus, like a big chorus going up to like a 5, I have all of that headroom. If there's a big bridge or a big chorus tag at the end, I can go, I have all this headroom left, even with a small rig. The other thing is just more practical. So what I like to do, if I've got a handful of movers and washes, is I like to find for my moving lights, I like to find my big look, the look that's like, this is my big look that will usually go to at some point during the worship experience. I like to set my static fixtures to that big look, because if I've got 8 moving washes and 10 static lights, well, instead of 8 and 10 with that big look, I now have 18 lights doing the same thing. So there is something to be said about making sure you have, like, the symmetries, plays into that. Your design, your overall design really plays into that. Making sure that, everything is just lined up really, really well, really intentional, and it's clean, because that can give you just that much more. Instead of splitting up your rig, I really like to try to make the whole rig work together. That's not always the case, and not every fixture can do that. Some, you might have some utility fixtures, you might have some fixtures that you can play around with that, and it just doesn't, really make sense. But your kind of meat and potatoes fixtures, try to get them all doing the same thing. They can do their separate things throughout, other portions, but for your big look, you want to get everything moving in the same direction. So yeah, just to recap is, if you only got a handful of fixtures. Oh, before I recap, the other thing is, if you can't use haze, you only have a handful of fixtures, it is worth investigating and going down the route of actually building like a set. I know that is, a little bit dated. I think it might be coming back. I see more of like just lighting design. It's like stage design with lights. But doing, going to Old Reliable and doing like a wood palette design, or doing wood or coroplast or foam board or something like that, and actually doing a set and uplighting it, can also be a really great way to just enhance what you already have, and give you a few more tools, a few more tools to work with. So just to recap, manage dynamics, get everything moving in the same direction for your big looks, and then build a set. If you're not able to use haze, if you're not able to get them positioned in the way that you want, then building a set and uplighting can give you some really great looks and some really great tools. So that's it for the first episode of Car Ride Sessions. Hope this was helpful. Bye, everybody.